everyone, and welcome to the new episode of Beyond the Band, our weekly podcast where we discuss IELTS. So, my name is Margo. I'm an IELTS trainer, and here with me today I have Nash, as usual. So, Nash, what are we going to talk about today?
Yeah, so hey there, everyone. So today we're going to focus on idioms, how we should use idioms in IELTS speaking. So, first of all, we need to understand whether we really need to use idioms. Then, the five golden rules for using idioms, 15 emotion based idioms with examples, what to avoid, and how to learn them naturally. So, Margot, I'll start with the first question. Do we really need to use idioms to achieve a high score in IELTS speaking?
Well, using idioms can really elevate your answer and it can help you gain some extra marks, but they're not the only tool you can use to get to the score that you want, a high score. There are other lexical resources that need to be considered, and use of idioms is only one of them.
I agree. I agree. So that's why instead of idioms, you can focus on using collocations, less common vocabulary, then, of course, topic specific terms, precise descriptions, and paraphrasing skills. Margot, would you like to say something?
Yeah, all these tools that you have here, like collocations, means combinations of words that are often used in native English speech. Um, it's actually a very powerful tool, right, to make you sound natural and fluent. Less common vocabulary means using some more sophisticated synonyms, right, to common words. Accelerating, disheartened, like the examples that we have here, right? So instead of saying sad, saying disheartened makes you sound better, right? Makes you like it really elevates your answer. Topic specific terms, it means if you can showcase some words only specific to a particular topic like medicine, science, maybe research, you don't have to be an expert in these fields. But if you can showcase some words only related to that area, is actually a great plus for you. It's especially relevant to part three speaking, where you get to discuss some general topics, not just your life, your experience, but you're asked to give opinions, almost like expert-like point of view. That's where it'll definitely come in handy. Precise descriptions, well, you know, describing something as vividly, as visually as you can is always a great skill. So if you can do it, go for it. Paraphrasing skills is something we always talk about when it comes to IELTS, no matter the section. So when it comes to listening, to speaking, I'm sorry, it's definitely the priority. So basically, paraphrasing is the ability of expressing the same idea in many different ways.
True,
You
true.
can use different grammar structures. You can also use different words, synonyms. Um, this skill shows how independently you can think in English. So all these are really amazing tools that you can use to on your way to the score that you need. And idioms are really not compulsory. So, but if you want to use them, there are certain rules you need to follow.
True, true. And Margot, we've had many students who achieved very high scores without using idioms. I'm very sure they didn't know 10 or even 15 idioms, but still they achieved 7.5, 8, and so on. So, yes, what you say is really
Yeah.
true. And
So,
yeah,
yeah, if you want to use an idiom, they really need to sound very natural. Like, they should never sound forced. If an idiom sounds forced, that's it. It just doesn't work. It it it's only going to work to your disadvantage, to be honest. So, yes, rule number one, natural context. It has to fit the story, right? It shouldn't sound like you just, put it in there just for the sake of using an idiom. Mm-mm. Number two, knowing the complete meaning of the idiom is the key. I mean, sometimes you might feel like you've heard an idiom, you feel like it could be the right situation to use it, but unless you're 100% sure about its meaning, better not. Better not. Don't take that risk. There are other ways you can express yourself. Confident pronunciation. You need to say the idiom naturally. It has to come with the flow of your whole sentence. Don't make it stand out like a separate statement. It has to complete your idea, not to replace it. Yeah. And of course, you should not overuse idioms. 2, 3 idioms maximum. Even just one is enough, really, for the whole test. Sorry, it's really more than enough. So, and formality level is definitely something that needs to be considered. What is it exactly? So, there are idioms which are less or more formal, and some of them would work perfectly well for, let's say, speaking part one, speaking part two, which are about your life, which are okay if they sound a bit informal. But the same idioms might not work for part three speaking, where part three speaking is more academic, more formal, right? So you need to consider that point. And where do you get the information about how formal or informal the idiom you're learning is? You get it in the definition dictionary. Normally, those definitions are provided with notices as to which register the idiom belongs to. Formal, informal, probably some local slang, which you should also kind of avoid, right? If it's too specific, just don't. You don't need it. And yeah, so consider all the aspects of the idiom, and then you're safe to use it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, what you said is very true. And also, sometimes some students feel like, okay, I'm using an idiom, the examiner should understand me. And there is a risk because maybe you might not sound natural. And that way you might lose marks. So I think, Margo, you're absolutely right. 100%. I'm with you on this particular point. It must fit the story. You should sound natural. That's a very important point. Fine. So, based on the first rule, we have two examples here. Look at the correct example. When I saw my exam results, I was over the moon. And the bad example, I'm over the moon about reading books. The difference, one fits naturally, the other one sounds forced. Margot, can you briefly explain this?
So the idiom over the moon means extremely happy. It's a great idiom to use, it's very expressive. And if you look at these two examples, you might think that they're both fine. And it's true, they are grammatically correct. But the first one works because you see, over the moon is the idiom that we use when we talk about some experiences that um, like that make us feel something, a certain emotion. Um, the second example doesn't work because here it's more about our interest, right, or preference. So we don't use the idiom over the moon when it comes to that. There are other idioms you can use in that case. Like, for instance, you can say that, well, I've always been a bit of a bookworm, right? If you want to talk about your general interest in books. But over the moon is not uh, an idiom that you should use here.
Absolutely. And we can also say I'm an avid reader. That might sound
Yeah,
natural. Yeah, absolutely.
that's great too. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So now we're going to make it even more interesting for our audience. So we're going to share idioms that you can learn and use when you share your emotions. Now, that's the best way forward. If you want to learn a few idioms, I think that's the right way. So let's start with happiness. So, over the moon, if you're extremely happy, look at the example here. When I got this scholarship, I was over the moon, on cloud nine, blissfully happy. Like after my engagement, I was on cloud nine for weeks, thrilled to bits, extremely pleased. My grandmother was thrilled to bits when we visited. So, those are the idioms you can use when you want to express happiness. In part two speaking, you always have a minute to prepare. So, maybe if it's about a memorable event, a joyful event, you can think about using these idioms naturally. Uh, so, about sadness, Margot, I would ask you to explain, please.
Uh, yes, and very often in IELTS, you are asked to talk about some experiences that made you feel sad, right? So look at these idioms. So you can use them, and they all sound very expressive. Down in the dumps, instead of saying feeling that you're feeling depressed or extremely sad, right? After I didn't get the job, I was down in the dumps, right? But not down in the dunes. That's actually a common mistake that people make. It just sounds similar, but no.
Yeah.
Feeling blue, sad, or melancholy. So instead of saying that you were feeling sad, you can say that you were feeling blue. That's easy enough to remember, but it's an idiom, so it's a plus. I was feeling blue after my friend moved away. So, number three, heartbroken. Also pretty easy to remember. Emotionally devastated. Well, when your heart is broken, you can imagine that. I was heartbroken when my pet passed away. Yeah. But at the same time, if you look at the definition itself, emotionally devastated, that already sounds very sophisticated. So probably if you're answering the question from part one, which is like about your life, where like the style is a bit informal, heartbroken is great. But when you reach to part three speaking, and you have to describe maybe other people's feelings regarding a certain topic, general topic, heartbroken is probably not the right choice here. Emotional devastated would sound great and very appropriate for that part.
I think that's a very nice tip. I think everyone should remember that. Yeah, that's a very nice point because, in part three, it's better to use emotionally devastated. Yeah, that's a very nice tip, Margot. And I think it's a very useful one. Yeah,
Sounds much
great.
more formal, yeah.
Yeah. And I think you should go on with anger and frustration. Please explain.
Yeah, moving on with the emotions. These actually super cool. They're very natural. Even if you're not preparing for IELTS, it's great to know these idioms because they're actively used in, English speaking environments. Hit the roof, meaning being extremely angry or getting extremely angry suddenly, right? My father hit the roof when he saw my grades. At my wits' end, completely frustrated, right? I was at my wits' end trying to solve that problem. So completely frustrating when you've tried everything and you just don't know what else to do. That's when you can use this phrase, at my wits' end. See red means become very angry. I saw red when I discovered the plagiarism. So once again, for instance, if you look at this, like see red, like become very angry, the definition sounds very common. But if you look at number two, at my wits end, like this phrasing, completely frustrated, once again, it doesn't sound that common at all. And that is probably more appropriate for part three, like I said previously. So like I said, idioms are not the only way to get to the high score in terms of lexical resources. There are many other tools how to express yourself uh, in an uncommon way and be, you know, pleasant to listen to.
True, true. And I think even in a work environment, people do use this particular idiom, hit the roof. Like, my boss hit the roof when he heard this news.
Yeah, other
That's
people.
used naturally, yeah. But at the same time, like Margot said, there are certain expressions we shouldn't use in part three speaking because here we need to sound formal. So, yeah. Then about anxiety and surprise. So, we can say if you're really nervous, butterflies in my stomach. So, when you feel nervous or excited and on edge, nervous and tense, surprised, like out of the blue, suddenly, like completely unexpected. She called out of the blue after 5 years, blown away, extremely impressed. I was blown away by her performance. Now, by the way, blown away is used quite often. So, yeah, so at the same time, like Margot mentioned, you need to sound natural. Fine. So, here we have three examples, and I think, Margot, it's better that you explain. Please go ahead.
Yeah, in your IELTS exam. So when you might be asked to talk about an achievement that you're proud of. It's a very common part two question. Part two is where you prepare a long answer. So um, here we have some examples. First, you see, you have an example. I was over the moon and on cloud nine. Why it doesn't work? Because two idioms are used at the beginning of the sentence, and that's too many. Two is already too many when it comes to idioms. Just you have to use them in moderation. This is just you showing off how many idioms you know instead of actually developing the point. So no. Uh, the right approach would be to use just one idiom in the right context, like this. I organized a charity event. When we raised $5,000, I was over the moon. So instead of saying that you were just extremely happy about raising that money, you say I was over the moon. It works perfectly fine. It's appropriate. It's grammatically correct. So yeah, the context is right. But an even better option would be to not to use any idiom, but actually say, I organized a charity event. Raising $5,000 gave me an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. Wow, that sounds much um, better, much more elevated. It's in terms of the context where you're talking about an organized event, it's probably not um, as informal as you would speak about your daily activities. So, probably in terms of style, this option works better than the second option. And also, all these words, overwhelming, right? It's so specific, right? Like it's such a powerful modifier. Sense of accomplishment. That's a very nice um, sophisticated phrase, right? It's not at all common. It's very expressive and it's elevated. So, yeah, this is definitely a better option, even though you're not using any idiom.
True, true, absolutely, absolutely. So the question is like, how can I sound natural, right? Because that's what the student might ask. So, what is the way forward? So, the biggest mistake is to memorize. So, don't do that. So, don't memorize a list of 1,000 idioms. That's not the right way forward. So, you should do this. Watch TV shows, know 2 to 3 idioms per episode, create personal stories for each idiom, practice in specific situations, learn in emotion groups, and then notice how often natives use them. Now, the only way is actually to listen to audiobooks, maybe podcast, interviews, and that's the way you can understand whether native speakers, whether they use idioms regularly or not. Margot would like to add something briefly.
Yes, and you should really go for the idioms that you feel comfortable with. Like Nash said, don't try to learn or memorize huge lists of idioms. It doesn't work that way. Like, yeah, pay attention to what actual English speakers use nowadays. Write down the idioms that you like, that you feel you want to make part of your speech, and start making examples with them.
True.
Say them out loud, read them out loud. Start practicing some imaginary answers that you would give to the examiner, like if you're preparing for an exam, obviously. And like really um work on that idiom. You need to study it from all angles. You need to understand the context, the formality level, um, like in what, also even the grammatical accuracy of an idiom matters, right? So, for instance, um, like take the idiom, give a hand, right? Which means help someone. So, if you just use the definite article instead of the indefinite article a, right? If you instead of saying give a hand, you say give the hand, right? I mean, it only means give somebody your hand, literally, to hold. And the whole meaning of the idiom is lost just because of that little article. So, idioms are great, but you need to be 100% sure about its meaning, about its context, about how natural it sounds. So select a few that would that could be used in a variety of topics and really work on them. Emotion related idioms that we discussed today, they offer a great scope for
Absolutely.
opportunities.
True.
Yeah, so you can use them effectively, and yeah.
True. And also, instead of idioms, you can also think about these expressions like here are better alternatives. Margot, can you elaborate on this?
Yeah, so once again, instead of saying very happy, I mean, if you don't want to say, or if you can't remember the phrase over the moon to replace a very common phrase, very happy, right? You can still go for other options like better synonyms, less common synonyms, more academic, more formal, thoroughly delighted, right? Both the modifier, thoroughly, and the adjective delighted, they sound great. They make you sound very proficient if you use this phrase, right? Even if it's not an idiom. Very sad, right, can be replaced with disappointed, right? That's also, it's on the academic side, that word. Um, Completely astonished could be used instead of very surprised. Once again, the modifier very, which is like extremely common, you replace it with completely. There are other versions, like there are other synonyms such as utterly, totally, absolutely. You know, you have lots of options. Astonished instead of surprised. Why not? For a change. Outraged can be used instead of very angry. So basically, all these more sophisticated words and synonyms of more common words, they're great for speaking part three, for instance. Better, in fact, than idioms, right?
True.
Given the more formal style of speaking part three. So one more time, idioms are great, but they're not the only powerful tool to get your high score.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And so these are the key takeaways from our session today. Number one, idioms are a bonus, but not required for a band seven. I mean, if you can use it skillfully, that would definitely help you, but you need to be careful. And if you plan to use idioms, don't use more than three idioms at the exam. Then remember, natural usage beats memorization because examiners would not like to see you forcing those idioms when you answer questions. A strong vocabulary is better than forced idioms, and context and confidence matter most. So it's very important that you sound natural at the exam. Margot, would you like to add something here?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the conclusion and it sounds beautiful. That's actually the essence of what we talked today. Think of idioms as seasoning, not the main dish, right? Don't make them stand out too much. Don't overuse them, right? Stick to the point. If the right idiom comes to your mind, great, go for it. But if you're not sure about it, there are other ways you can get to the score that you need. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I guess that's it for today. So we hope you guys found it useful. If you have questions, please leave them in the comment section. So until we see you guys again, it's goodbye for now.
Goodbye, everyone. Until next time. Bye bye.
Yeah. Bye.